Great. Welcome for this third session, or the third webinar. As some of the participants might recall, might see, is that we started in the beginning of the year with launching a series of 3 webinars in the area of what we call user-centric service design and delivery. And we had a session already in April, where we focused really on this user design. And I see many of the colleagues joining today also joined back in the days. Later in May, we had I think a very interesting session dedicated to the digital identity and trust services as a very important part of the user centricity and making it even more user centric. And now we have a third session that is dedicated to service standards and also to the monitoring. I will come back to these elements later on, and also to the full agenda of today. But without any further ado, and knowing that he has a very busy agenda, I'm very happy to welcome also with us Florian Hauser to share the opening words with me. Florian is the team lead for the PART team in DG NEAR. And Florian always has been a really welcome guest in supporting us through and in these webinars. So also this time, I'm really happy to have you, Florian, to address some welcome words to the audience. So the floor is all yours.
With pleasure, Monique. Good morning, dear friends and colleagues. And I really hope you enjoy this series of webinars. I definitely do, and I think it's very important. And today I want to be quite humble, and I don't even want to, pretend that I know better or lecture anyone. And maybe just a few reflections more from a citizen's perspective. Obviously we talk about service standards, and it's good to actually reflect what works, and is it useful for citizens. And while we don't have the word digital in the title of this seminar, we obviously assume that most services are digital nowadays. But I would argue, the quality of services, when things break down, it's quite often before the digital. So just to share a couple of stories, I'm German, and my friend in Germany, she has a severely disabled child, and so she has a right to disability allowance. And I hear some noises. I think somebody has the microphone on. Yeah. And the child's disability will never change. It's a genetic defect, and she has to apply every year again for the same benefit, and it's very humiliating, and it's very complicated. And they said, well, that's a lot of administrative effort on the one hand for the administration, and why do you do that? And I think if she would cease to live, and then you would surely also find out. So I think it's good to think a bit about also how it is for humans. And then another story with a colleague of mine from Austria needed a new passport, and it took her 6 weeks to get an appointment to apply for one, and then it took another 6 weeks to get it. And so I'm just saying, measuring service standards doesn't have to be very sophisticated. It's just basic common sense sometimes, but it needs some reflection. And even when you do things right, also think about, especially when you digitalize, think about the accessibility. I'm curious to hear also from Minister Economy, because Albania made a really amazing move to digitalize services, and it was really like a textbook case. It was really advanced. But then we were discussing about it, and I think there were some issues at the end with accessibility, and that maybe some people, and I think you had the the parallel analog system with the service centers, and then this was dismantled quite quickly. And I think some people struggle to actually access the digital services. So these little service centers popped up where people would ask people with a computer to do it for them. But obviously that has a problem also then with data protection and so on. So even if you do everything right, you have to pay attention to all these details. So I'm curious also to have the reflection of the minister on this. Yeah, and I'm just really looking forward to hearing from your experiences. And I think if we all manage to have better services, it's really a key factor to building trust in the government. And I think it helps on so many more levels, and not just making our lives easier, but it also facilitates business and economic growth and everything. So it's good to get this right. So I'm looking forward to hear from you and to learn as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Florian, for being with us. As in all the previous times, it's really appreciated to see the support from DG NEAR, of course, to us as Sigma, but also to all the different countries in the Western Balkans joining today and also in the past. Also, thanks for already shedding some light on some of the important things that we will for sure touch upon today. Issues of, well, complexity, but also dealing with this complexity of service standards in a way that it shouldn't be that difficult and complex. A, B, also the standards for as well, well, over the counter or in-person services, physical services, and also the e or the online services, and then of course also hearing and seeing some inspiring practices. If you allow me, let me just briefly share my screen to talk you through the details of the agenda today. As said earlier, this third webinar is in a way the closing one of the series that we launched, as I said earlier, a series dedicated to user centricity or user-centric service design and delivery, focusing on, as you can see here on the screen, the service design and the user experience, the digital a month ago, and then now the service standards and the monitoring. In a way, we could also have started with this one, because in fact the definition of service standards and then of course the monitoring is like the alpha and the omega. It's the start and also the closing of a kind of a process, a kind of a circle. Because in setting standards and therefore also the link with the user centricity, putting the user at the center, putting the citizen up front in really identifying the needs, the expectations, translating these into service delivery standards, but also then following up, asking for proactively for the feedback from the citizens, the users, on to what extent we accomplish, we achieve on achieving these standards. That is quite key. For those who have attended all these webinars, hopefully they were inspiring and you picked up some interesting elements. For those who didn't have the chance or missed them, we have recorded and we have recollected all of the information that you can find on Sigma's website. So all the materials, all the presentations, but also the full recordings of the session. So if you just go to our website, you can see here the screenshot, just go to our website, go to events, there you have all the recordings, there you have all the material that you can look at a quiet moment over summer again. Now, the idea is that in the second half of the year, we will continue with these webinars, with the series or with individual ones. We're still thinking and designing on them. But if you have ideas, good ideas, inspiring practice to share, or topics that you would like to elaborate or us elaborating more, feel free to reach out to us. Feel free to get in contact, and happy to think together with you and with all colleagues that are interested on what topics we could continue and what topics we could deepen out in the second half of the year and later on. So please feel free to do so. Then moving to, I think, the very interesting topic of today. We will kick off immediately with good colleague Ben Welby, who is a senior policy analyst, and with our colleagues in the digital government and data team within the OECD, the governance department. And Ben, together with this team, with his colleagues, they are doing really some front edge work on service standards. And I think Ben will be happy and delighted to share some latest insights, and also I think to set the wider scene on service standards and monitoring standards for today's webinar. After that, we have the pleasure to welcome Minister Milva Economy, Minister of State Standards, Minister of State for Standards and Services from Albania. And as Florian said, in Albania, they're doing quite some revolutionary work on digital, but also doing quite some inspiring work on measuring the service quality. And the minister will share with us the really fresh and new methodology and approach that in Albania they are working on. They are piloting. They have just piloted. So I think there we will hear some really interesting experiences, on the ground experiences from the minister in Albania. Then we have Nikola Nikolov, the colleague from the Republic of North Macedonia, where I think really interesting work has been going on the single points of services, a whole network of services that has been created across the country. Not only created, but also the work that is being done on monitoring the service delivery in these single points of service and services is very interesting and inspiring, we think, for many other cases, countries in the region. Last but not least, we're moving to the subnational and the local level with the Belgian colleagues, the Flemish colleagues, and from the Flemish Agency for Internal Affairs, both with Leen and with Jeff. They are working in the team that is working on monitoring the local service delivery, not only service delivery, it goes much broader, where they have developed a whole monitor for citizens and municipalities in the Flemish region. But we will come to this and I will leave it to them to explain in details what the monitor is all about, how they're doing this, how they have designed this, but also how this is used really as an evidence-based instrument for service delivery, but policy more in general. With this, I've already spoken too much for the start, but hope that you all have a good insight in what we are expecting in this morning. I think a very interesting morning. So I will stop sharing for now, and I will pass on the floor and the stage to Ben to set the scene. So Ben, all yours.
Thank you very much, Nick. Good morning, everybody. I trust that you are seeing the screen and not my presenter view.
All good, Ben, all good. We
Brilliant.
Can see and we can hear loud and clear. Excellent.
Perfect. Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Nick, for the invitation. Good morning, everybody. As Nick has said, my name is Ben Welby. I am from the OECD's Digital Government and Data Unit. And as Nick has also trailed, I'm going to provide a bit of a zoomed out wide angle lens to start the day off, to start the morning off. With apologies to those of you who might have joined some of the earlier sessions. If I repeat some of the things that I know that we might have shared in more depth earlier in the year, I'm going to go over at the beginning our framing of this question of digital government maturity. Then I'll talk a bit about how that feeds into service design and delivery. We'll talk about service specific standards, but then zoom out to a little layer, a little further, to talk about national service standards. And then I'm really looking forward to handing over to the three other presentations who will zoom back in to very specific national experiences, which I'm really looking forward to hearing about. So the starting premise for this is that in 2022, the world is digital. It's no longer a question of whether we're moving to become digital, whether we're in the foothills of this transformation process. The pandemic has accelerated things, it has made things non-negotiable, and really this is now a leading priority in almost any country that you might talk to. And that's because governments play a hugely important role in this. There's a role of governments as providers of services. There's the role of government as commissioners of services provided by the private sector or by the third sector. And there's the regulatory role and the oversight role that government plays in ensuring that society functions and that technology is used in a healthy way. And so government needs to be really capable to make sure that the use of technology takes advantage of the opportunities, but also ensures that the risks are well thought through and the challenges are well understood in order that the use of technology and data is always user-centered, it's always fair, and it's also environmentally sustainable. So we, just as a point of detail, we talk about digital government rather than e-government because we see this as being an important comparator to make, to say that rather than taking what was on paper and putting it on the internet, and focusing on what technology can do for government, we're thinking about the processes themselves, we're re-engineering and redesigning them with technology as a support, but with the focus on the citizen all the time. And that led us in 2014 to develop this OECD recommendation on digital government strategies that suggests if you're taking a step back as a country to think about using technology effectively, you would want to do so in a ways that are open and engaging, that are well coordinated and governed, but also are married to the capacities that you need in order for implementation to progress. So far, so abstract, really. So we've built on that with our digital government policy framework. And this is what we use as the basis for the Digital Government Index, which we will be running the data collection for later in the year. That's a process which any country can participate in. So if there is an interest or an appetite to participate, please let me know and we can discuss. And those 6 areas of digital by design, data-driven, government as a platform, open by default, user-driven, and proactiveness are how we look at whether these ideas from strategies are being turned into practice. It's still a little bit abstract. So I'm going to talk to you about one of my favorite examples that really helps to make this a bit real, as it were. I'm sure we all have our favorite examples, but I really like the automatic social energy tariff from Portugal, which some of you may have come across before. But a long time ago, over 10 years ago, Portugal, the government, identified there was a need to provide greater support to people with the cost of energy. Yeah. Similar policies might be needed at the moment, but people had to sign up and register in order to receive it. And so uptake was surprisingly low. You know, this is kind of free money. Why aren't people signing up for free money? And so the team responsible for it did the analysis, they looked into it, and they found out that people didn't know that they needed to apply for it, that they had to make the request to get it. They kind of assumed that if they could have it, they would get it. And so they worked together, they took that problem away, they worked together, and they worked together and automated the whole thing. And the impact was amazing. In March of 2016, there were about 150,000 households that received this special tariff. 3 months later, after they had automated the process and made it proactive so that people didn't have to do anything, that number was almost 750,000, a 5 times increase by making this available to people out of the gate. And so it reflects this policy framework quite neatly. I think it's digital by design because it's taking the policy and redesigning the solution. It's not coming up with how you might have done this in the past and just putting it on the internet. It's really thinking about a new way of approaching the problem. It's data driven in 2 important ways. One, because there's data driving the decision. People are aware of what's going on. They're using qualitative data to understand why that's happening, and they're measuring whether there was an impact. But it's also only possible because there was quality data within the organizations and the right architecture and governance models for them to be able to exchange it and to use it in a way that worked. Government as a platform in having the technical interoperability platform that allowed them to put that into action. It's open by default, not because of the data being published, but because of the openness and the willingness to collaborate and work across organizational boundaries. It's user-driven in a kind of obvious way, because it's giving people something that they need, and the team being eager to understand why it's not working, and it's proactive. And so we go back to this little comparison between e-government and digital government. It's why I quite like it as an example, because it takes it and it really makes it very tangible. And that is the process of government. Government is an abstract thing, politics, discussions, economy, budgets, all of that. It's quite abstract. But for people, the experience of government is found in the moment when they need something from government and they have an interaction with government and they access any services that government provides or looks after. And so that was the first lens. The widest lens on digital government was narrow the focus a little bit more into how we think about service design and delivery. And we do that using these three lenses. The first of that is to ask what is going on in the country. No two countries are the same. The conversations about services from a political point of view, from an organizational structural point of view, from the different channels that exist and the technology and the demographics of a nation determine actually how you might think about services and what's going to be the appropriate way of responding to what you find. The second area, though, is the motivation. The why are we doing this? What are we trying to achieve, and how are we going about doing that? And that then comes into a cultural change, a way in which government thinks primarily from the perspective of the user first, but also cross-organization to solve all of the problem, from an end-to-end basis. So from a citizen point of view, all the way through to the back office. Is this issue being met well? And is it done with an agile approach that allows you to iterate and continue to involve people and learn from that? And then what are the tools and how are you going to be able to support teams to do that? And we've got on the list here talent and capabilities, data, technical components like identity, like notifications, like interoperability platforms, but also the channel strategy and inclusion. But the two at the top are just slightly different and nuanced ideas of the this is where standards comes into it. How you support teams, the patterns that you put in place to determine how teams should operate. And so here we are into the third bit, the third zoom onto service standards. So I was actually looking for where I Googled this because I was looking for where did the first service standard come from, and I got distracted before I found the answer to that. But what Google brought on to, how Google puts snippets of information onto the page now before you even go to the website, was this definition which comes from the European Commission, which is saying a service standard specifies requirements that should be fulfilled by a service to establish its fitness for purpose. Fine, good. And at the level of an individual service, that, and we'll hear about that later, that means that you're understanding and involving the users and recognizing their needs, because that's the starting point. You have to understand what it is that you're doing and why you're doing it, far more perhaps than the intent of the policy. The relationship between what you're trying to achieve and the people who have a problem that needs solving is critical for teams to be able to understand how to set the standards involved. And then they design and test a solution to meet those needs. But that's not where it ends, because then it goes into this question of defining and measuring whether or not performance is good. And some of those indicators will be quite technical, response times, other technical things that aren't ever going to be of interest to the public, but they also need to correspond to what expectations should the public have of a service. And how do you then measure against those indicators and those service standards, learn from it, implement that change and repeat? This is not something that you do on occasion. It's not something that you do once in a while. It's part of a real-time shift in the way that teams are responsible for their services and responsible to the people who need those services. But how do you scale that? How do you operate in a way that means that that becomes the default? Because this sounds very good. And if every team responsible for every service worked in this way immediately, we could probably all go home and we wouldn't need to have webinars like this. But the challenge is, of course, that that's not how it works in practice. And what we've come to reflect on, based on different experiences around the world, is that service standards can be an enabler of transformation at scale, that there is the need and the responsibility for teams to take a responsibility, and that is the aspiration and the ambition. But how can you, from the center, create the right playing field, the right environment, the right rules that mean that this becomes more of a habit than an exception? And so the starting point for that is quite aspirational. What you're saying as a country is, here is what we collectively think good looks like. And you can come to that through a consensus of bringing different parties around the table. That will include the public, will include different public sector organizations, to define what does good look like. And that is immediately going to be challenging to certain habits, behaviors, contractual arrangements, delivery models, some tried and tested and quite well established ways of working might suddenly be up for discussion. And that's okay, because this ambition is not something that happens overnight. It's a long-term commitment about changing the culture, changing the climate. But in order to do that, the targets need to be achievable. The way in which people's performance is assessed needs to be fair. And there needs to be sufficient support and investment in the teams to be able to work in this different way. You can't turn up with a new set of standards and overnight expect everybody to suddenly become the best at doing them. This takes time. It's not something that you can flick a switch and it works. And ultimately, it's driving towards this outcome, an outcome where teams and suppliers are self-sufficient, where the public can experience a consistent level of service and a consistent user experience, and that services in general are in better quality, more effective, more efficient, and help more people and do what they're set out to do. And we've seen many countries around the world develop standards and think about, okay, if we create this centralized list of aspirations, how do we then not police it? Police is definitely the wrong word, but how do we encourage that to embed itself? And to guarantee that performance, there are two, not necessarily competing worlds, but there are two different emphases that you might need to take at different times. On the left, the more authoritarian, the more enforcement basis of saying, okay, this is the standard, this is the law, you must all do this. If you don't do it this way, then you won't receive funding, you won't be able to use particular branding or be available in single websites, and you won't be able to launch until it meets the standard. And that once you've done that, you're still going to have to provide performance data to a central dashboard, which is very visible and is really just designed for us to keep an eye on you. There's very much a sense in this model of a stern teacher, someone who is checking that you have made the grade. And that might be helpful in certain dynamics, possibly to shake some long established patterns, but it's probably more unhelpful than helpful to be that stern. And so we've increasingly seen that where these have been tried, they've been replaced by a softer approach, which is more consultative, it's more coaching, it welcomes more of an ongoing dialogue with the teams, recognizing that teams need to be supported, they need to be encouraged, they need to be given the opportunity to tell the story of their progress, their transformation. And so services would go live, but they'd be expected to go improve over time. And the way in which performance is measured, the way in which it's reported on is left down to the services. And this sort of loops back to the service level service standard in saying, okay, you're autonomous, you're empowered, you know your users, you work with your users. At the center, we can set this framework, this umbrella of what we think good looks like. But in the specific context of who you're working with, the policy you're trying to support, and the complexity of the way in which your service operates, you are the experts in understanding your users, in measuring performance, in setting out and setting clearly the expectations that people should have of the service that they need to use. So my final, the final part of what I wanted to share is on the work that we've been doing to try and absorb all of the ideas that we see reflected in the different standards around the world. We identified over 300 different little ambitions, if you like, that are captured within different service standards from different countries. And we've tried to make sense of what are the overriding priorities in this respect. And what we found is there's two halves to this. There's what the teams who are working on services specifically need to be thinking about. But then what does the government, the system of government, the center of government, however that manifests in a country, what are the strategic choices, the strategic activities that they need to be investing in and thinking about in order to create the conditions that teams can do this well? So the first half is really on the service angle. The second half is more about the national approach. So the starting point is probably very familiar to everybody, because I think almost every webinar that talks about this topic probably says, start with your users. And so that is their needs, their expectations, and their experiences. And you have, in order to understand that, you need to be continuous in the way that you seek out and engage with a diverse group of people so that you can understand and prioritize what they need to do, rather than falling back into doing what government wants to do. And one of the things that's really important in this respect is to hide the complexity of government. If you can map out the whole problem that someone is facing, then you begin to understand the user journeys, the data flows, and the different roles of different organizations as they come together. And that is a confusing mess if you reveal that to the public. So part of the challenge of understanding the needs, expectations, and experiences is understanding what should be kept backstage. Those of you who have joined the webinar today are seeing a highly polished presentation from all of us, but you will know that before you joined, we were having the conversations amongst ourselves to check that everything was working. You don't need to see all of that. You just need the service to work for you. The second area is that while it's important to understand needs, it is vital to maintain that knowledge by continuously looking for ways to be user-driven and user-centered, whether through co-creation or co-design in terms of the nuts and bolts of what's being done, or through the testing and the improvement of the service on an ongoing basis. That means communicating clearly, setting good expectations, keeping users informed, inviting feedback, and providing them with support. A lot of the elements which a service would probably include in a public-facing service charter or a set of statements that a service might be aspirational for in terms of helping a user through their experience. It's really doing all the things that you would hope someone would do for you if the roles were reversed. We can have a very keen sense of what good customer service, good user experiences look like, largely because we have had such awful user experiences, and often in the private sector. I actually personally think I've had worse experiences in the private sector than I have the public sector. So I think we should be much more positive about the work that we do. And the third thing is about openness and transparency, and that comes through publishing data, publishing decisions, and being open about algorithms, some of that technical openness of government. But it's also in the openness to use methods and tools that make it possible for someone else to then build on top of that work. So that's open standards and open source projects and contributing to that, and encouraging teams to publish their code openly and share and reuse the work of others. And then it's also about collaborating and working in the open and showing that that there's not a hidden face to government, that these things are public services and that the public can be trusted to have a conversation. That relies on really strong leadership to create the safe spaces that people feel that they can be open about the challenges as well as the positive things, and not just always present a false impression of what's going on. People respect honesty. And that can help in the challenge of defending and reinforcing and restoring public trust. But it also needs teams to acknowledge the idea of public trust up front. So whether that's through individually having that responsibility of being a good data steward and doing all the things that mean that you have good cybersecurity and data hygiene and those sorts of things, or it's stopping to pause and reflect on, is this is a good idea, this use of technology, we can do it, but should we do it? And if we did do it, what might be the consequences? What might be the public concerns that could come up? Can we either do things in a different way that people won't be so nervous about? Can we communicate with people that actually there's a clarity of purpose here and they're misunderstanding it? Or maybe we shouldn't do it at all because actually it's not really right and we can do something different. And that means thinking about reliability and security and privacy and making that a priority as much as the usability of the service. The central idea of digital government is that technology is something to take advantage of. It's an enabler, but that the focus is reshaping the experience of accessing services. And so the ambition for a service should be to make it simple, to make it consistent to use, and to proactively, as with the example from Portugal, proactively solve the problem. Florian shared the experience of his friend who continuously has to apply for the benefit. Often benefits, these things which governments provide to help people in particularly challenging moments of life, seem to be attached to the most impossible to navigate processes. And you have this total mismatch between the intent and the compassion or the generosity of the state, and then the experience that people have in trying to access this benefit, these benefits. And so personalizing services can be a helpful pursuit, but it's about a deep understanding of those people's needs, not personalizing it for the sake of it. It's not customizing a homepage. It's really treating people as individuals and providing services that work for them. And necessarily that means addressing legacy technologies and thinking about the back office experience for civil servants as well as the public. And this sixth point is where you sort of see this shift that I mentioned, away from what service teams can be responsible for into how governments need to be thinking about the environment for services in which they operate. Channel strategies, we've heard the work in Albania is amazing in terms of the change, the digital change that's happened. And it's interesting that Florian mentioned that there's been a bit of well, we'll hear from the minister about the way in which that impacted on the face-to-face angle of that service. And digital is brilliant, but digital also allows for the in-person experience to be made more effective for those who will continue to rely on it. And so we talk about this idea of omni-channel, where strategies make sense of the way that telephone, digital, physical channels, they work together, not as separate doors into similar processes, but as in separate doors into the same processes, so that no matter which service you might access, however you might access it, the quality is still as it should be, and the outcomes are still consistent. And maybe you need to, that this will mean consolidating different networks and taking a step back and thinking about the landscape of provision and understanding how to come up with an even more integrated and interoperable experience for government. It's hard work, but it is amongst the most valuable in terms of helping users be able to meet their needs through government. And underpinning the transformation are the teams and the suppliers, and teams need to be multidisciplinary, but they also need to be empowered, and that skills strategies for digital and service design are really important and a priority, both for internal staff, but also in thinking about how to stimulate and encourage the GovTech ecosystem of suppliers. And that leads into the 8th area, which is no matter who's doing the delivery, finding ways to have a consistent methodology. So that, again, the service standard as a national pursuit is creating a whole of government consistent model of delivery. And there's just 2 more. And one of those is about having a government as a platform ecosystem to cover a range of different tools and resources. As I mentioned the slide earlier on the enablers, it's about skills, about data, about common components, but also about best practices and guidance and assurance processes and access to funding, and those sorts of elements, this ecosystem that helps teams to do high quality work at scale and with pace. And no list about digital would be complete without talking about data. We saw in the Portuguese example that data plays different roles, that there is the architecture and the infrastructure of data, the quality of that data within an organization and having the ability to share it. But it's also about how teams handle data, that they make data-driven decisions and they're aware of what they're doing. So that's taking that, zooming out on what can national service standards achieve and how can they help to focus the conversation. So I hope this has provided that helpful wide angle lens as a basis for the conversations that will come next. We started with the question of digital government maturity as a foundational element in bringing together these different elements that need to be considered to help with transformation. Having thought about the abstract of maturity, we've hung it off the framing of service design and delivery. And those 3 questions: what is going on in the country that shapes services? Why are we wanting to provide services? And what is the philosophy and the behaviors that follow from that? And how are teams empowered and equipped to succeed? And then we've considered the importance of service specific standards, but recognize that they are often the purview of high performing and autonomous teams, and those areas of government that naturally demonstrate the best of public service design and delivery. And so I've zoomed back out a little bit to recognize that while the hope is that every team should naturally lean towards developing these things themselves, it isn't always the case. And to ask the question about the role of national service standards. Now we at the OECD have identified these draft 10 principles. These seem to be consistently expressed. And they help to do this twin role of inspiring individual teams and services to deliver higher quality services, but challenging central government to create the right conditions for transformation. And so I hope this is a useful initial framing. I will hand the floor back to Nick if there were questions or however you want to proceed. I'm delighted to hear from you. Thank you.
And thank you so much indeed, Ben, for so nice and neatly setting the scene for the topic, for the webinar, highlighting the work you/the OECD is doing in this regard, but also bringing in the experience from different countries on a national level, but also, as you said, on the more institutional level, organizational level. So I think this the scale of individual and then also central and defining what is good. I mean, what quality is. I think this is really interesting. Also to zoom in on one of your slides on the hard versus soft. I think this is really interesting. Definitely in the region, and I think we can have and will have a good debate on this. To what extent soft levers only work in the given context in the region, or does it need to be hard in terms of regulation, in terms of not only the carrots, but well, also the legal sticks and really to push it. But then the question is also, well, is this sufficient? I mean, if you regulate it, if you put it in a law or a bylaw or any regulation, is this sufficient in itself? And then we come, I think, to the transformation element and the cultural element that you also mentioned correctly. I think how can countries also support this, and I'm sure that we will come into this discussion also with some of the next speakers, definitely. But allow me to open the floor. We have some time for some question and debate, I would say. So let me open the floor and the microphones if colleagues have some specific or more general questions. Already the chat was used, but I would probably open the microphone for you, Goran. Goran Pastrovic had, I think, an interesting question for Ben. So please, Goran, you can put it forward yourself to Ben if you like.
Thank you, Mick. I actually have two questions. The first one is related to your experience, Ben, or any inspiring case that you may be aware of in standardizing the approach towards setting the organizational culture. You underlined how important the central cross-cutting service standards are. So that would be my first question. And the second is similar to the extent of understanding your concept of mixing up digital government maturity, service design and delivery, and then setting the standards from agile perspective. I was wondering what's your experience, how realistic it is nowadays that we may expect that we have multifunctional teams, that we have agile concepts realistically implemented in the public sector, and then enforcing all those elements that you were talking to us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Goran, for two really good questions. I think I'm hugely inspired by some of the work that I was doing like 10 years ago now, when I worked I'm from the UK, and I worked on gov.uk when it was first being built. And one of the things which the UK, at the beginning of that process, it was quite a bold, here we are, we're doing this, you all have to do it this way. It was quite abrasive in some respects, and that doesn't help to achieve organizational change. And that's how it maybe looked from the outside, and it's certainly how it felt for organizations. But alongside that, there was a softer element to it. And over that time, I was fortunate. I was part of the service assessment process, so I sat on those panels of, are you doing the right work? Seeing this kind of stern teacher, like, this is an exam, are you going to pass it? And we all know from education, well, I don't know, maybe we all know from education, but often there can be a tendency of teachers teaching to exams. So people learn how to pass the exam. And so their culture, their organizational culture, becomes a tick box exercise. And that actually means it's incredibly shallow. And the moment that you pry and you find a question, it all falls apart because you haven't actually helped to achieve the organizational change. And what I can say with sort of 10 years of hindsight is that this question of how you standardize organizational culture cannot be decreed, and culture eats strategy for breakfast, famously. That it's a combination of leadership, it's a combination of, and we've done some work about skills in the public sector from a digital point of view, and we've thought about the importance of creating the right environment and how it's, in order to achieve the culture that you're looking for, the aspirational set of standards are important because you know where you're going, but you need to have guides who help you get there. You know, you wouldn't try and climb Everest on your own. You're like, I'm going to climb Everest because it's amazing. But you would work with an amazing team of Sherpas and all the rest of it, and you train and you practice, and then you would, as a team, get to the summit and what you're doing. And that, I think, has to be what we're seeing as succeeding around the world, is not when the center sets itself up as the arbiter of what good looks like, but when the center collectively brings everybody on this journey together and builds that community of leadership and really tries to make this a common narrative and a common vision, and finds ways to partner and support people through it. So that's what I would say in response to your first question. And saying all of that has meant I've forgotten your second question. I'm sorry.
It's related to the agile concept embedded in our methodology. So how realistic it is to expect that public administration ecosystem really takes up and follows the principle of agile, because I fully agree with you, but what is probability, and do you have any experience in that?
Sure. yeah, I think this is where my my second comment on the national level standards, when I compared them with the service level one, came from, is that this can feel like it's a totally foreign concept in a lot of the way in which teams might work today. And we're doing some work with Turkey at the moment, and there was a really interesting example in Turkey, because Turkey is actually very good from an e-government point of view. It's got very good technology as a basis, but agile is not really something that doesn't really exist, except in a few pockets. And there was one organization that told this story about how they were wanting to transform a service. They didn't actually have the in-house capability. They were bringing a supplier in to do it, and the supplier didn't know how to do agile either. But they had people inside the organization, like a couple existing public servants, who were very committed and passionate to this way of working. And they worked with the supplier, and they delivered in an agile way, even though neither of them had experience of it previously. And they started to see the value of it. Now that's great in one organization because it helps demonstrate the impact. So if you can use agile ways of working and go from this would take 18 months and we still won't know what we get in 18 months, to doing 3 months of work and being able to show value, 6 months of work being able to show some more value, you create a momentum around the way of working, and you have a very tangible example that can then be the basis for conversations elsewhere. And if it happens to coincide with working with a supplier who is a supplier elsewhere in government, you're hoping to see that begin to happen as well. And that's why we really think the GovTech ecosystem is a very important part of this process. Some of the actors in that ecosystem are maybe responsible for poor quality outcomes and questionable contracts over time, big systems integration contracts which haven't delivered value for money. But we tend to find that almost every country has a GovTech, startup community of people who embrace these ideas, who actually might not be public servants, but still have that desire to deliver good quality outcomes for the public. And so the work that other colleagues of ours in the OECD do, and other colleagues of mine in the team are doing on digital government investments and procurement, and how you can use that as a lever to help create a different way of working, I think is a very relevant topic, but probably not one we can get into this morning, sorry. But happy to follow up and put you in touch with the people working on that, Goran, or anyone else who'd like that.
Super, thanks, Ben. Also, thanks for the really good and interesting questions, Goran. I think both interesting discussions on both topics. I think we have time for one last question or round of questions. If there's someone who likes to take the floor, raise your virtual hand, and then happy to pass you the floor and the microphone. If not for now, then I'm sure that we will have the chance to come back on things later. With this, I also encourage all of the participants to use the chat to, during the presentation already, drop questions or reflections. Please do that. That's always helpful in my role of moderating. Not seeing any hands, not hearing any voices. I see Jose, my good colleague Jose, who has his little yellow virtual hand up. So please, Jose, come in.
Thanks for your very interesting presentation, Ben. And you comment a very, very important aspect, which is like the risk of the ticking the box culture, as you have said, working for the standards. And we have seen this is very dangerous even in the private sector. If you all remember how the bank branches directors were rewarded if they concede a higher number of mortgages in the US, but also in Europe, and how this ended up for all of us. So have you had any good practices of how to avoid this checking the box culture in the public sector?
Thank you. I think it's like the critical problem that digital government practices have of sort of the cargo culting, saying, right, that works in that country, I will just pick it up and I will now implement it and now it will work. And I think this is connected to the answer to Goran's first question, which is, as important as a strategy is for the technical and the logistical and the practical, some considered approach to the cultural is really important. I mentioned that those assessment panels that feel like you're bringing someone in to defend their PhD. You know, it's like it becomes a very confrontational dynamic, and then the person on the other side doesn't feel like they're necessarily as respected. It's not a relational conversation. And I compare that to actually what you want to do in those settings is hear the teams excitedly talk about how they met with their users. They understood the problem they were trying to solve. They tried different things. They found that wasn't working, so they tried this other thing. And now look, it's amazing and it's working. You know, there's a real excitement in responding to the needs of the public, because the problem that you're working with isn't selling advertising data or trying to, you know, turn over more TVs to an e-commerce website. The thing which public sector teams are working on is the access to services that literally make lives better if it's a benefit, that improve the speed with which businesses can get on with their business and reduce the amount of time they're dealing with government, can help to make democracy function better. All of those things, you know, it's a hugely motivating thing. And so my sort of response to a climate in which people tick a box is, there's something like that for me is it's a puzzling outcome. So how do you get behind that and understand what are the pressures that team is working on, that they feel they need to just tick the box, rather than being able to confidently and enthusiastically and passionately talk about the problem that they've been given to solve and the users whose needs they're responding to.
Thank you. Very helpful answer indeed.
Thanks. I think this also nicely links with the agility approach that Goran raised before. So I think that nicely closes also the circle on this topic. But I'm sure that we will hear from both from the minister, but also from Nicola on this aspect of the motivational aspect, right? How to get people enthusiastic, not only because they have to tick the box or because it's regulated, but also because they can see that it really makes a difference. And so that this, well, soft and hard approach, they found each other somewhere in the middle for the better and the benefit of the users, the citizens. So thanks again a lot, Ben, for being with us, and as I said before, so nicely setting the scene and introducing into some concepts, but also into to some context, and already triggering the discussion a bit. So thanks a lot. I think with this we are at the perfect moment to switch to Minister Economy in Albania, because there, in fact, Albania has decided to create even a special minister position dedicated to standards and services. So I think in terms of vision and political leadership, I think this is quite interesting. So really, I think privileged to have the minister here with us today, to hear her experience, but also, as I introduced before, to hear the really on the ground experience with the barometer that in Albania they are designing and testing. So with this, Milva, you have the floor and the screen if you would like to share, please.
Thank you so much, Nick. And it's very interesting to participate today in this discussion about the services, standards, and their delivery. When I took the position, it was the beginning of September last year, middle September last year. And in fact, I was coming from agriculture ministry. So for me, it's quite new, this new position, and I have to understand. So things were very discussed in Albania about the progress, or where Albanians were aware about the progress that we have made in the digitalization of the services and the offering of services through Albania. My person, I have lead a process in Ministry of Agriculture to apply for some support for oil to the farmers. And this was an application done online with all the calculation based on integration of different registered and databases to manipulate the last number of free oil amount for each farmers that had applied at the platform. So when I started this work, first thing that came to my mind is what we will do with standards. What does it mean, standards? How is configured the public administration in Albania regarding standards of services? So in the configuration of the public administration, there were some agencies in charge of services. The first is the digital services offered by ACSI, or Albanian Agency of Information Technology. Then it was a DISA, one-stop shop office, and there was different institutions that they have the possibility to create their own application for services, which is based on request on email or request on paper, but the system was not completed. And if the citizens have not been satisfied with the services, they have the right to apply to a platform called co-governance, and they can make complaints according to their level of satisfaction. So this was the configuration. And the first thing that my team has done is to see several practices all over the world. So we have seen practices in UK, practices in France, in Italy. We have went through the paper of OECD Sigma. We have seen Estonia, we have seen Austria. So we read a lot of things. And then we decide that it will be very good if we can have a first survey that is to understand how the agencies that are offering services to the public, they are doing. And in this moment, we compile a questionnaire that was sent online. So we sent the questionnaire in 119 agencies in Albania, and 100 of them has fulfilled the questionnaire that we sent. 12 have not answered, and 7 of these agencies has been qualified that they are not offering services for public. And in the moment that we have sent the questionnaire, we ask to each of the agencies to upload in the form also the document that was related with standard operation procedure.
I'm just sharing your presentation, Minister. Just instruct me when I need to go to the next slide, and then that should be fine.
Okay, next slide.
Yep.
Next slide.
Yep.
And so here we are.
Super.
And then we start to evaluate the answer sent by each institution, and we evaluate it according to a card that we have prepared that include 5 of the principles that we have considered very important for the services. And then what's come out of this evaluation is in the next slide. So only 10 of the submitted standards qualifies as standards according to at least one of the criteria. And here you have a slide when we see quality, commitment, time, cost, and correction, how it is in the institution. So, but in fact, the services were offered through ACSI, so people have access to services. What is happening? Why this level of answer? So next slide, we can see that what are the problems? The problem is that the concept of standard is almost unknown by the staff of agencies. This was very well described in ADISA members and that ACSI members, but in other agencies, the concept of services is not there. There is ambiguity between standards and services, standards versus performance, standard versus a decision of Council of Ministers, and standard versus an indicator. So you see that among the people that have answered to the questionnaire, this was not a very clear understanding. And then we see that there is a lack of transparency, even that each agency has the website. In the website, they have not described the service delivery very well. And they thought that everything that they are producing can be found in the web of Acti or in the web of Adisa, but not in their web. And it is very important that also we to confront our findings with other reports that has been in the country. So what other reports demonstrate for the situation in Albania? And in the next slides, we can see how it is. In the progress report that European Union has produced in October last year, we have seen the sentences that is saying that minimum standards, minimum service standards are missing in the public administration. In the FIA White Book, there is a need of digitalization for businesses and expanding the digitalization for the tax administration, but standards for digital public sector services are not there. In Investment Council, that is an instrument, that is an agency, a mechanism that has been set up in Albania from government of Albania together with EBRD. They usually make a recommendation for each meeting that they organize, and the meetings are quarterly. And there is a need in their recommendation for increasing the amount of digital services, to put up the minimum standards for public services to be very evident, and to have a monitoring system of measuring the performance of the service delivered to the business, especially to the business, but also to the population. We have a business registration center, and they also have deregulated a lot because the list of services that they were offering is there, and they were facilitating a lot the licensing because they have went through a system of deregulation. And then if we see the report of Audit Authority of Albania, they have concluded that the service performance indicator is missing, and that national minimum service standards are missing. And if we see the proposal coming from the public administration department, they have the need to have a kind of card for measuring the performance of his staff versus the performance of the institution. So these were what we found in the public administration, and in the same time we have done our survey to understand what is going on. In the next slides, we have the framework and challenges that what we are going to do. So we need more digital services, increase and promote the electronic services, increase transparency, and improve the services according to the principle of open government partnership initiative. More users of digital services, youth enabled of ICT technology, increase the number of users for electronic services, increase the development of electronic services, and consolidated the IT infrastructure in general. And also these data were coming from, even from the EBRD dividend transition and dividend of digitalization, the last progress report that they have produced in spring this year. With the data that we have for Albania, Albania is positioning very well in enabling the access to digital services, but also we have a problem of how big is the number of users, even in businesses and even among population, when we have to increase the use of ICT. And then we have developed a concept of quality. And in the concept of quality, we have also tried to consider what Sigma has already prepared. We have followed your recommendation, and we have a lot follow the UK case to see how we have to build up on that. And for us, the concept of quality is a concept that needs to be measured continuously. And we have perceived that it's very important to create an instrument that we can see the gap between this that is perceived and this that is realized in fact. And we have established the principle of profit, and we have also distributed among the people in different agencies. If we go to the next slide, it will be good. What does it mean to measure quality? And this is what we have worked for. So we work very close with ADISA people at the beginning to develop the concept of the quality and to create a form of measuring the quality. And so we have drawn up a list of measurable indicators. So we have designed the data collection. We have piloting the first information, and then we have analyzed the information. We have used a concept of correction mechanism related to service delivery. And then according to all this mechanism, we have created the so-called improved quality system in place. And this piloting of the quality went through from February to end of March, considering the training that we have done to the staff. And then we have collected the data. So you can see how we have collected the data in the next slides. And then for the collection of the data, we have considered that the minimum service standards consist in those quality attributes of the service that are mandatory and must be guaranteed by the service provider agency. The minimum standard is actually a mechanism that forces service providers to fulfill minimum obligation to citizens for the service they are provided. So this was the concept that has been introduced to the staff of the piloting agency. We found out 12 piloting agencies, and they have to report according to minimum five services. But this was the concept that was introduced continuously to them, as we have found a gap in the understanding of the minimum service standard. And in the next slide, we have introduced the barometer. And in barometer, we have, and if you go to the next slides, please, we have considered it as a multidimensional tool. And we have chosen the attributes of service quality. So we have, as we have decided to do it for the institution and for the services, at the end, next slides, we can see that for the institution, we have created four dimension, and for the service 5 dimension. For the institution, the 4 dimensions are linked with transparency, accessibility, degree of digitalization, monitoring and correction mechanism. And for services, the 5 dimensions are transparency, accessibility, responsiveness, traceability, and efficiency. And then we have for the institution 12 indicators and 22 tellers. And for the institution, we have, for the services, we have 7 indicators and 28 tellers. And all this has created the barometer for us. And out of that, we have seen that that institutions that have answered to that have done a lot of work, but with the help of a team that has been the mentoring of the institution to collect the information. And so in the presentation, I will go through that because this was very important. But this is what we have done. So we have created, out of the nonsense, we have created a barometer mechanism, use the experience of Sigma and UK, and we have drafted a questionnaire. A questionnaire was the first train to ADISA people that have some knowledge on that, and then we go to other agencies. And we have published some data, not published in the front of the public, but among these agencies that have been part of the pilot, to see where they are standing. In the moment that we have finalized that activity, the government have taken a decision that from the 1st of May, all the services will go online. So the work that we have done so far need a little bit of calm down and rethinking about the next step. But as Mr. Hauser at the beginning asked me how we are coping with this situation, I have to say you that first, we have realized that, yes, there are about 1,207 services, public services that Albania is offering. And those are divided between those that are completely digitalized and those that you make the application online, but the services is not provided to you online. You can find it in a paper or you have to go somewhere to pick it up. And this now is not anymore possible because you have to find your services in your email address, and it is all the register that has been created that are communicating with each other through some staff that is in charge for that. And the staff that is in charge for that is sitting at ADISA. So now immediately the profession that ADISA is applying so far need to be restructured. So that there are people that are going through a system that we call system of centralized system of electronic signature, or a system that is linked with the 55 register that communicate between us in the level of the state. And the hierarchy who has access to each register is already done. So it is a very clear picture who has access to registers, how they have to access and how they have to provide the data. But in meantime, the population have to live with this drastic change, because it was not like this. You can go to ADISA, one-stop shop, they can help you. You can go to some institution like Cadastre and they can help you, but it's not anymore the case. So if you need help, you have to write to co-governance, you have to use the green number, or you have to write an email to e-Albania and they are going to help you. So everything is online now. And this will take some time that the situation will calm down. But in the meantime, the government, and especially AKSHI, is working to provide a help for the population, a help that is linked with some introduction of mechanism like a Siri in Albania, that they can have some support for the service that they are required. But this is what is happening. And the other thing is what we are doing. So what we are doing right now is that we think that it will be, and you have to the recommendation of at the slides quite at the end.
Voilà.
So what we have suggested now is that we have to go through institution monitoring. So the barometer will have the sense to be in the line with institution monitoring. And instead of 4 principles, they are going to have 8 principles or 8 dimensions. And for each of these dimensions, we have to combine the indicator and sub-indicators. And we think that now it will be a department under the AKSHI, which is the institution in charge for e-government in Albania, who has to monitor those data. But how we are going to cope with the citizen and businesses? And for that, we have considered that it is very important to have a yearly survey with citizen and businesses and focus groups, which will be their experience during the last year with the services and how they see what are their expectations for the future. And this will be based for the auto correction of the services in the next year. And all this is under process right now. We hope that everything will be very ready for end of September. At least this is our engagement for that. And we are working hard on this direction. So in fact, what we have done so far is that we have seen that, yes, it's good. We have services are online, but not all the staff in public agencies is able to understand that now they have to serve clients, public there, people and businesses are their clients. As in the private sector, they have to service to them with quality. And this quality is going to be measured. And this is not only measuring as institution, but the institution itself is going to measure their work. And this is the new concept that we have introduced in public administration so far. I have also to add another information that in the beginning of, or at the first part of last month, we have organized a national conference of anti-corruption in Albania, having in mind the three pillars: prevention, awareness, and also investigation, administrative investigation of corruption. But we have used a horizontal theme, and the horizontal theme is digitalization. And what we have seen in digitalization is that there are some big achievements, especially in the procurement area. In the procurement area, the procurement that is going through a negotiation process, a negotiation for contract, is very, very few now. And it's less than 7% of all contracts that have been discussed in procurement sphere in Albania. But also there are a lot of other services that have been improved, especially in the field of transport, for those that are applying for services in transport or interurban connection. And also we have seen how big achievements have been achieved in the area of health and in the area of education, especially in the area of health, for finding a job through a platform of nurses for Albania, or for in the area of education, a teacher for Albania, that you have to apply through a platform. It's not anymore 3 people that are discussing about you, but it's a logic of a queue that is used in both circumstances. And also there is a division of geographical areas for people that would like to have health services in their area of living. And as in other countries, also in Albania, pandemic has pushed to accelerate the process. And the first area that have accelerated the process of public service was the sector of health. So now, for those that are persons that have non-transmitted illness, and we are providing for them free drugs. For them, it's very easy now to receive a SMS, a text in their mobile for the drugs that they have to receive in each pharmacy of the area that they are living without going to their family doctor. And this is possible for 2 months continuously. And this is due to the registers that have been combined with each other, and to the area of family doctor related to area of to the need of person, that we have made this possible. And we have made also possible that because of COVID, not to have long queues in hospitals, and they have to book their visit to the doctor that is in charge for any reference illness in advance, and they have to present themselves in a given time. So a lot of things happened, in fact, in digitalization of services, which has not been reflected to a mindset of the public administration. And now this is now the challenges, that what is happening to be honored by people that are in public administration, and they have to understand that their next step is to monitor the quality how they are offering the services to these people and how much they are listening to the complaints that are coming from different users. And this is what we are going to do at the rest of this year, to put in place this mechanism. So this is what I would like to say. Everything about barometer is there, but barometer is a tool that helped me and the team of my Ministry of State to develop. And we know that this barometer need to be also rechanged, rethinkable, and has to be reused in a different mode. And I'm open for any questions. So.
Thank you so much, Minister, for this very rich presentation. As you said, and as we clicked briefly through, there is a lot of details, further details on the barometer, on the results, on the methodology even. So when we will share the material, colleagues can go through and see this themselves. And if there are more questions, they can come back to us on this. But I think it's good that you also immediately jumped to this part on the recommendations in the presentation. I think linking back to some of the things that also Ben mentioned in the beginning, this link to well, making the whole concepts alive, also this transformational aspects on the culture. So really interesting to see. I would quickly leave the floor to colleagues if they would like to ask some further questions. Let me maybe stop sharing. You can always come back to the presentation, but then I can see the audience. Are there some hands? Some people. I see Goran to start with. Please, Goran.
Thank you, Nick. Respected Minister of Economy, really inspiring, and it's amazing what you did in a quite short period of time. As Mr. Florian mentioned at the very beginning, accessibility was a kind of aspect that you also touched upon in the barometer, but I was interested to learn upon how do you actually aim to prevent digital and rural divide and social divide. I understand that you also were in the Ministry of Agriculture, so you must understand also those people living in rural areas or marginalized areas of Albania. And the second question was related to how are you going to, what incentives you are going to insert in order to change the mindset of the employees. You mentioned that they do not understand that they need to serve the customers. Still, there are going to be measure their performance against the barometer results. So it would be interested to know whether any plans in that regards are also set. Thank you.
Thank you, Goran, so much for the question. I would like to answer to the first question, what about the rural dividend and how we are going to cope with that? As I mentioned in my presentation, we have this center at DISA, that are considered one-stop shop in Albania. And those centers are going to be transformed right now. So part of them will be a training course for people that would like to have more information about literacy in IT. There will be also training for the youth regarding coding and regarding other things that make them much more pioneers in IT technology. And also will be a part for, we have some projects in the country that are linked with a support given from Albanian American Development Fund, from World Bank, that we call TUMO, that are mostly in the center in Tirana, but they are going to be divided in all territories. So we have at the moment, we have 11 centers of ADISA that are integrated services, but in the rural areas, we have sent to the people that are going to apply those that are in charge for IT in agriculture directorates to help them to understand how they are going to apply. Usually we say to them that the service is one click away from you, because the application for agriculture schemes are made very easy. At the beginning, they have been thought very easy, so that any kind of farmers can do even through their mobile. And this you can find in your computer, but also in your mobile, to make a application for the schemes of support. But they don't need not only the agriculture scheme of support, they need all type of services. How they are going to apply for that? Some of them are not so easy, are difficult. And for those that are difficult, we have committed very strongly to this co-governance platform, that they have to write down there. And there is a person in each co-governance agency that is leading the person through the application. But it is going to be online, so you cannot contact physically the person anymore. This is one thing. And what we are doing regarding the autocorrection, and this is a very difficult theme. It's much more difficult than the first question, what we are going to do. We started the process of the regulation years back, and we have created out of the regulation this list of services, and some of them have been clarified during the process. We don't need so many documents for an application, so we withdraw a lot of documents. One of the things that, for example, is still remaining a headache for many businesses and citizens is when they apply for the construction permits. Construction permits has been digital, but to have a permission for constructing even an extra room in your house, you have to wait, I don't know, 18 months. And this is very important for making things happen. During the reconstruction period of earthquake, we have created some facilities, another channel, still online, for those that applied to reconstruct their house after the earthquake. And it seems that it works very well. So taking the example of this resilience process that we have gone through, we are considering some auto regulations that need to be for other areas. But we have already a list of things that we have to facilitate. And there is also a good thing that business community is making a lot of complaints, and they are pushing government to act better. And they are communicating continuously with the National Business Registration Center, and we are reflecting on that. So I can use an example. Last year, we have passed in the parliament the law about the end owners. And this has to be reflected immediately in the business profile of each business. And this is a duty of the National Business Registration Center. But because the businesses were not ready, because the characteristics that they have to fulfill in the platform were difficult for them, they've asked several times to facilitate the application and to extend the period of application. It takes a long time of discussion between government and the businesses, but at the end, businesses win. And so we went to the parliament and we have extended the time of their application. So these are continuously debates that are taking part in the country. And I think that better you understand their needs, especially business, and then betterly you understand the needs of users through focus groups, it will facilitate and will improve this type of services, digital services. And this is the process that we think to go on. So to consider good examples and to have a ear to listen to all their complaints.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you. More questions. I see Jose's hand, also allowing to others. Colleagues, if you have questions, please come in. Otherwise, Jose, the floor is yours.
Congratulations for your excellent work in the barometer. It's really impressive. You commented that when you started the barometer, you noticed that in several agencies, they were confused about the concept of service standard. Do you think that after the barometer was performed and done. Now it's a better knowledge of service standards in Albania public administration. Do you think this project contributes to awareness raising of quality and standards?
Okay, very good question. Thank you. I think that it's still not at the level that we would like to have it, but it is a continuously work, because it's not so easy to change the mindset of the public administration, especially those that are used to do the same thing. So you have to motivate. We try through the team of mentors that have been prepared in ADISA to go in each institution and to say to them what is their expectation. Also, we use different type of channels. For example, we use the television as promoting the idea that services have to be there and they have to have standards, but standards are going to be measured. And measuring standards is for better, it's for doing a good governance. And if we would like to have a flagship in the Sigma monitoring process, we have to know that. So we try to motivate in a good way people. I am not so sure that we have achieved everything, because still there are people that have this confusion between standard, between services, between a decision of Council of Ministers. And there are areas, for example, in standards that if you ask about the cost, usually the cost is not well understood, and it is linked with the tariff. And there are journalists that are asking, if they are not delivering to me in time, do they put a fine to the public, to the civil servants? So we have to cope with all these issues. So we have to why we have not to find every time that you have not answered in due time, but we have to create a logic of answering in time. And why in time is very important for having a good public services. And this is what we are creating as a mindset, but I think it's not easy, and this time is not enough. It's issue of time. So we have to think that in the moment that everything in digital will work very well, this will come together with idea that
seems the connection broke up just a little bit, but I think we got most of the aspects in the final answer. Thank you so much again, Minister, for the great presentation, but also for the excellent work behind all of this. As you said, this is not concluded and a done deal, but many of the foundations are in place, and you're already incorporating in the methodology of the barometer some of the latest challenges related to the going digital, fully digital. So that's interesting to see, and we will for sure keep close eyes on the progress and the evolution that is being made in the country. I'm just looking to the screen and to the audience. If there are no burning or urgent issues or questions, then thank you once more, Minister, and looking forward to see you soon in person, as soon as tomorrow, because we will have a big event in Tirana on quality management under the patronage of the minister herself and of the Prime Minister. So I think that's also just underlining the interesting work and progress the country is making. I see no hands, I see no questions. So with this, thanks again. And then moving on to our next colleague, our friend Nicola Nikolov from the Republic of North Macedonia. Nicola is working in MISA being the Ministry of Information, Society and Administration, and has there the position of State Advisor for Information Systems and Technologies. As already introduced on the agenda, with their network of single points of services, they in the Republic of North Macedonia also are working on monitoring let's say, the performance and the quality of these single point of services. And I'm happy to invite Nicola on the screen and to take the floor and to also to share his presentation if you want to, Nicola. So the floor is all yours.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope that you see my presentation.
Yes, excellent, Nicola.
Okay, cool. First, it's a pleasure to be today with you. Thanks for organizing this session and very good webinars where we can share the lessons learned and see the EU perspective. I send you regards from the sunny Ohrid today. We are here with more institution and working on the strategy for public administration reform. I lead the component for the digital part, and the team is working on. So after the presentation and after the questions, I will leave you, but I will continue the recording when you will when you will publish the recording. I will see what will happen after my leaving. First, thanks for the very good organization. Thanks for the interpreters, and thanks for the people that join us today. And we'll have, let's say, time for those that will see us from the recorded video. I will speak about the system that we use for monitoring to improve the services in single point of service. I hear some noise. Maya, okay. This system was developed by Tinker. Tinker is IT company in Macedonia. We work together. All rights are on the Ministry of Information Society and Administration, but Tinker support us for the development of this system that is implemented, and we use that in a production. Before I continue, let me share a few words about me. I started my professional career in 2007 as a software engineer. I worked in a few international companies where I started as a developer, team leader, and ending as a project manager from the business sector to the government sector. From 2014, I'm working in the government sector, where I work on let's say interesting national products, and I was included in many projects. Some of the projects are DMS, ERP, let's say interoperability, and the national products that I am very proud of. The system for tax that we use in the Public Revenue Office, and the National Population Register that I coordinate, and it's a basic for the digital ID of our citizen. Speaking about the agenda today, we will see the IT system overview that were, let's say, related with the QMS system. And after that, we will see the QMS overview, the system architecture, and the modules for appointments, rating, monitoring, the reports, and what is planned for the future. As I said, it is important to understand what is the environment and how this system is connected with other institutions, but also it is important to understand that it is not only to implement the system, it is more important to find a way how the system will be accepted from your user. QMS is a system that is using on a government from one side and on the citizen from other side. Government is using from the aspect of monitoring the quality and let's say monitoring the clerk work, but the citizens is using for having the real rights on the single point of services. And from the citizen side, it is important also to send information back how let's say they are satisfied from given service. I mean, no matter are you, let's say, focusing only on a digital work from the administration, and how much you are focusing. It is important also to have those physically points where the citizens come in to ask for a service, and where the citizens actually see how the administration is working on. For example, we have a single point of service in Macedonia that few of them are implemented in our country. But idea is that there are a lot of hospitals that actually work with the citizens, where the citizens actually it's not possible to go digital, and even if that in some cases there is e-doctor cases, right? But there are a lot of cases where the citizens have to go in a person and ask for a service. Idea is that you should somehow measure the quality of service that the citizens get, and it is important how the citizens will understand the system, and how the citizens will use that system. So that's why it is important to understand the environment where this system actually is deployed, and how this system is work. As I said, I work on the tax system. This was implemented in 2014 in the Public Revenue Office together with the Ministry of Finance, and implemented in 2014 and 2015. Was a really, let's say, interesting when I hear from the citizen, well, it is implemented and there is one black square that is now printed in our bills. But they actually didn't know that in that black square, the QR code actually, are many important things that are stored there. The system actually collects all bills from all stores, and there are a lot of thousand transactions per day in this system. But the real value for the citizens was, let's say, presented in 2019 when the Public Revenue Office presented the application for returning the percentage of the task, and also started to educate the people how they should scan the QR code and how important is that QR code. So for us, that was a really important thing to know and to be implemented in our system, because this QR code is the way how we communicated with the citizens, measuring their satisfaction from the services that they get from the institution. Of course, in 2019, we also implemented the National e-Service Portal. It was launched after the publishing the National Population Register. That is, as I said, the base of digital ID for our citizen. There is a single sign-on service, EID.mk, that actually is directly connected with the National Population Register and is used in the National e-Service Portal. In the National e-Service Portal to be authenticated. As far as we see, the number of registered users is increasing for each day, and we are lucky to see that the people were familiar with the single sign-on. This single sign-on now is using in a more institution, and we use in all new developed application. But as I said, no matter how you will invest in the digitalization, for sure that there will be people that will ask to go physically and to get the paper in their hand. So as you can see, those people are waiting behind the single point for services in Skopje. They are waiting for to get their number. The top of the screen, you can see TV that actually present the next number that is invited to enter in the organization. They wait outside where they are able to be let's say and feel the environment outside, but also there is a place inside in the building where also the TV present the next number that is called to going on a given counter. This is inside actually, where on the info pult there is the kiosk that present the institutions. And for each institution, when you will select the institution, you get the list of the services from that institution that is, let's say, able to be accessed in this single point of service. But before going on, let's see how it is developed and what is actually the system architecture and how it is connected with the other system. It is intended actually to be used in almost every government institution that require client queue management. As I said, the hospitals are one of the places where the people actually going physically. So our next iteration will be together with the Ministry of Health, also with the other public institutions that are ready to use this system to be implemented on their side, and as many as of those kiosks are implemented, we will have a better data in the background. This system actually is implemented with more modules, including on-premises client queue that you saw this kiosk, appointment booking, service quality rating, extensive reports about the worker performance, and real-time monitoring of location and counters. From the citizen's perspective, there are two applications that are available. On the left side, you see the mobile application, and on the right side, you see the web application. Those two applications are connected with the same system. And now let's see first the architecture, how it is organized. This is a very simplified diagram. As you can see now, the diagram presents only two locations actually, but you can link as many as possible because the system is very easy scalable. It is not linked with licenses, but it is done with the open source software, so it is not expensive, let's say. It is deployed on a cloud environment where we separated with the load balancer the public applications and the private applications. The private applications are those that are using for monitoring, for reporting, and for requesting the next number. And the public applications are those ones that I presented on the previous slide. On each location, there is a ticket kiosk, and that actually print those ticketing slips, and there is a TV that presents the numbers, the queue, and there are different counters that actually ask for the citizen from the queue. This is how it looks like. This is the single point of service in Skopje. You see at each of this counter, you see the LED display that is presented actually on the upper side, and the TV I presented on the previous slide where you see the queue. And this is actually the paper version when someone will come and will ask for a service on premises. But there is also the mobile application that I presented you previous, how it looks like. You will see in the next slide also. Idea is that you are able to schedule appointment for going in this single point of service. This application is create a request, sign in via the national single sign-on system, and it is also good to say that according to the configuration to the single point of service, there are many possibilities that are let's say configurable and easy to manage, how we will be able to let's say quick deploy the system in a new institution. Appointments are managed by the system. I have to say that there is no human interaction. So if anyone is reserved a time slot, that means that that when you let's say schedule appointment at 9 and 15, for example, that is presented here, the system will call you after the finished person that is before you. For example, if someone was calling 9 and 14, the next one will be the person that reserved a point with this application, and after that the system will continue to working with the on-prem tickets. So this is done just to save time, and this is the paper that actually is using for ESA tickets on-prem, and this is the mobile application. When you will click on the login to authorize, you will see the national single sign-on, where after the authorization, you see that there is a different menu that is presented, and after that you see the options that you have, for example, to choose the location, the institution, and the service and the time for your appointment. Of course, there is an admin panel tool that actually presents you what are the reservation for the given day, and yes, what is really important, after you going there, after you served from a given clerk, when the clerk invite the next one, actually the clerk closed your ticket and you are able to do the ratings. The ratings, the model for ratings is also very, let's say, configurable, and it is easy to be extended. At the moment, there are 3 questions, but what we see now is that many people are, let's say, not interested to do the ratings, even if that we have that option. Many people are still, let's say, maybe because of time, maybe because of some bad understanding, maybe they do not rating the services, but we have a plan how to let's say stimulate this, and how to work and improve the number of the tickets that were finished with a good ratings. There is a model for monitoring. Idea is that administrators of the system can monitor the counter workers and the service utilization in real time using the monitoring model. In a real-time data, we have the active counters, where you see actually which counters are active, are logged in. The information about logged in counter worker, exactly with the name and surname. The last surmounted ticket, as well as the time it was surmounted. How you will see is a given counter working correctly, or someone just surmounted and forget to surmount the next one. Also, there is a report of how many clients are waiting for a specific service and how many clients have been served. There is also a graphic real-time representation, and what is really important, it is for us open data, because it is good to present how each point of service is working, and is there many people that are waiting, or are there, let's say, only a few of them. Reporting is very important for us. The system supports generation of many extensive reports. You know, when you collect all those information actually with Power BI or some other analytical tool can be let's say let's say excelled with the many information that we have inside, and what is also good to know that using those information with another analytical software will be used to let's say make another decision how to improve the quality of service. I mean, it is really good when you have a data, and from that data you should make a decision. The problem is when we don't have data and we should do a decision. That's the problem. But when we have data, it is easy to make a decision and to let's say do something to improve our services. The future work, as I said, it is not only to be implemented in the single point of service, but idea is that this system should be implemented in all points where people ask for a service, from hospitals up to all institutions that have any kind of a desk that is open to the citizen. It is also good to mention that this system directly report to the management, to the minister, to the vice presidents, how they see what is the status of the given service point. Now let me present also the real application actually that the citizens use. This is around 10. If I refresh, I think that now the number will be higher. Yes, 64 search clients. At the moment they're waiting 18, and there is no active ticket at the moment. This is the location in Skopje. When you came at this location, you can see all single point of services that are implemented. This is the statistic that is presented below. What is important is the rating report actually that present the data that were used. As I said, rated tickets are very low, so we have to, let's say, find a way how to stimulate the citizens and let's say to educate them what the rated actually means, and this is something that are let's say our task for our future works, not only to extend the system in other institutions, but also to educate the people. Also, all those that are IT with good IT skills, let's say, can book appointment using the web application and the mobile application, but to not making, let's say, some advantages and disadvantages for the people that are not IT, are not with good IT skills. We also have in our pipeline to implement a call center that actually all people that are, let's say, able to call but are not able to use the application to call in MISA and make appointment for them. How we will be able to, let's say, to not divide the people that are with a less IT skills. So I think that with this presentation, let me see, here it is. I think that this is the last line. I hope that I present you the system and the idea. There are a lot of work to be done in the next months. I have to say that I had pleasure to work on building on this system together with Dejan Mikolovsky and Karina Donetska. Those are my colleagues from the Ministry of Information Society and Administration. Dejan continued to coordinate this system, and he is responsible for let's say, enlarging the system in all institutions. We are very happy to see that the government accept the way of working, and that give a green light to implement this system in all other institutions. So I believe that during the next month we will have many implementation in other institutions, but also we'll find a way how to educate the people and how to use first the application for make appointments, and also to send the rates after the services. Thank you for watching, and I hope that we will have a good conversation and a question about this system.
Thank you so much, Nicola. Really interesting indeed, and really practical. I mean, really hands-on insights in how it was built and how it is used and how it can be further used. Let me jump immediately to Goran's question in the chat, if you allow me, Goran, on the further use and how to further integrate this system with other government services. What are major preconditions? I think this is the main part in Goran's question. Like, where do you see like major preconditions that would allow or not allow to integrating this the system into other services, Nicola?
According to the new agreement that we have with Tinker, because the tendering procedure was ending before a few months, we have 10 new institutions that will be, let's say, in a pipeline with this agreement. Actually, it is needed one kiosk, TV, and internet connection, actually. So those 10 new points will be implemented according to this government, but according to all institutions that will ask to use this system, they will need to pay only for the kiosk, for the TV, and many of them have pieces. There is a very simple application that should be installed on each PC where the clerk works. There is a special, let's say, configuration that is, let's say, required to be done just to have the better security side, right? But I think that there is a really quick and easy steps as a precondition to be done before one institution start using this system.
Thanks, Nicola. I see a hand from Christina. So please come in, Christina, and then I also have a question from the chat from Dragana, but first we take Christina. Please, Christina. Let me try once more. Christina, you have the microphone. I'll ask you to unmute. The hand is gone, so let us move to Dragana. Dragana, well, you can put the question also live into the to Nicola if you want, Dragana.
Thank you. I hope you hear me. Thank you for a very good presentation. My internet connection is very bad where I am right now. So yeah, I thought it was easier to ask a question in the chat. Could you please share more information on the learning and improving practices based on the results of the ratings and monitoring? And how do you avoid the risk of collecting data from the ratings, from the monitoring, just for the sake of reporting? What are the outcomes of the reporting? What are the actual learning process based on what you collect on the results of the ratings and monitoring? Thank you.
Thank you, Dragana. About the first question, to share the information about learning and improving practices, we can say that after implementing this system, it is, let's say, from the clerk side, see that, okay, now someone else that is not in the institution can monitor my activity. So there is not a possibility, for example, to going on a work and to not be logged in on application, or to not sit on your PC and do your daily job. From the citizen side, there is improving that at the end there is, let's say, not a, if I can say, a fight who come first, who was the second, and who was the third. There is exactly the ticketing number present the number when actually you came at the single point of service, and there is no possibility, for example, to someone call, hey, come on, I'm waiting behind your institution, could you please enter me in the back door and give me the service? So practically this is now not possible, because you are waiting and there is a publicly presented queue when you come and when you were invited to be served. About collecting data for the sake of reporting, I can say that what we are, let's say, watching on was about how we operate with the personal data. It was a very let's say a good case how to anonymize the data to be not personalized and to use for the statistic, and also how to let's say hide the clerk exactly that was behind given service. But for sure there are multiple reports that actually are visible for the managers, and we have a strictly logged mechanism about who access the system, who log in, who preview given reporting. So everything is under those GDPR standards that are regulated the same in Macedonia, even if that we are not in the EU. And the third question, what are the usual outcomes of the reporting? As I said, the usual outcome of the reporting, I think that we can measure when we will got a better percentage of the citizens that will report exactly about the service, about the single point of service, and about the speed of the service. At the moment, those percentages are very, very low, and it is not, let's say, not good to make any conclusion. But it is good to see that some of the clerks are with the tons of work. There are a lot of services that are, let's say, more frequent, and what we would like to do is to extend those positions, how we will, let's say, separate the work and free some of the resources that are there.
Thanks, Nicola. Thanks for the answers. Also, thanks for the interesting questions, colleagues. I don't see any further questions in the chat. I also don't see any further hands popping up. I'm sure that there are many other things that we can discuss, and I'm sure that Nicola will be available also for follow-up later on. But I think now we have to release you from the screen, Nicola, because you have to go back to your the sharing of your working group in lovely Ohrid. We are just a bit jealous. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Nicola. We'll be in touch, and thanks for making the time for us.
Definitely. Thank you.
Bye-bye. With this, I think we also make a nice switch to the last and final presentation for this morning. Making use of, well, collecting data, insights, and making use of these data and insights for policy making improvement, but also for concrete local service delivery improvement. I already mentioned this morning in the intro that we're moving to the local level now, and we're quite pleased to have the colleagues from the Flemish Agency for Internal Affairs, Leen Scharlakens and Jeff Smulders, who are part of the team who have developed and are running this monitoring in the Flemish territory as part of Belgium. So with this, Jeff and Leen, happy to hand over to both of you.
Okay, thank you. I'll try to share my screen. Here you go. Should be it.
Coming up. Yes, all good, Jeff.
Okay, perfect. Well, hi everyone, I'm Jeff. I'm here together with my colleague Leen. We're from the Flemish Agency for Local and Provincial Government, and we present to you today the Municipality and City Monitor. Now, first of all, if I can go to the next slide, who are we? Well, the Flemish Agency for Local and Provincial Government works at the service of all 300 municipalities and cities in Flanders, as well as for the provinces and for all local authorities coming under their competence. And one way in which we try to support or try to help municipalities and cities is by providing data, information, and knowledge. So contrary to this cartoon, which says, in which the person says, I'm making a decision, stop confusing me with facts. We instead believe that facts, data, statistics, and so on should be the starting point of decisions, should be the starting point of policy and local policy. So it's really this importance of data, information, and knowledge. And they are important, they are essential, first of all, to prepare and to support policy and local policy. Secondly, to improve local services. Thirdly, to monitor and to evaluate collaboration with stakeholders. And because we really value data, information, and knowledge, our agency has developed several local policy monitors. I present some of them here. We, for instance, have all local decisions made by municipalities, which are disclosed as linked open data. We have data on municipalities' finances, on integration. And then there is, on top of the bill, the municipality city monitor. Now, what is this monitor exactly? Well, actually, the Municipality City Monitor is the central data and knowledge platform for local authorities, meaning that if local authorities are looking for data, or looking for statistics and so on, their central point to go to is the Municipality City Monitor, where they can find all relevant data concerning their municipality or city. Because it provides a very broad image across different policy teams of the environment in which each Flemish municipality and city is active. And what does this mean specifically? Well, there's this broad range of topics we cover. There are 13 policy teams, 13 domains we cover, ranging from care and health, poverty, over work, economy, education, to living and living environment, climate, nature, culture, and so on. So it's really a broad range of topics covering actually all aspects with which local authorities are confronted. And in these teams, we present over 300 indicators, indicators that are relevant for local authorities. More than 200 of these indicators are register data. These are so-called hard statistics, which are measured and collected in everyday life, to say, by other organizations. But the central added value of the Municipality City Monitor in Flanders are those survey data. We have over 130 survey indicators coming from a major survey we organize. And I'll dive a bit deeper into these two central building blocks of the monitor, starting with the register data. At the moment, we have 280 register indicators. And as I said, these are the so-called hard statistics. They are measured, collected by other organizations. At the moment, we use 40-ish different sources or data suppliers. So our data for the register indicators come from over about 40 data suppliers. And these are mainly other governmental services, both at the Flemish level and at the federal level. And here's an overview of all different sources we use. So mostly governmental agencies, but next to that, some of our sources are also simply private or semi-private organizations. So we go to these data suppliers, we collect the data ourselves from them, and then we disclose them on our website in order to have one starting point for local authorities to find all relevant data. But next to that, more importantly, actually, we also have these 130 survey indicators, and they come from a major survey, the survey Municipality City Monitor, which we organize in Flanders. What is this survey Municipality City Monitor exactly? Well, this survey is organized every 3 years. And we question the satisfaction, the participation, and the behavior of citizens in all 300 Flemish cities and municipalities. And the added value of the survey is actually twofold. First of all, for citizens, for them, it's a unique opportunity to express their opinion on policy relevant theme, as the survey also covers the themes we have already mentioned before. And for local authorities, well, they can get a very good view on living and working in the municipality from a citizen's perspective. So thanks to the survey, local authorities can get to know how citizens think of their municipality, which can then be linked to the register data. So in general, it's a major survey covering all Flemish municipalities, covering a wide range of topics. So questioning all different aspects of society and of the living and working in a municipality. And to give you an example, let's focus, for instance, on local government. We focus here on information, consultation, services, confidence and trust. One of the questions, for instance, is, are you satisfied with the digital services of your local government? Or does the local government communicate well about new infrastructures, urbanization project, and so on? Or does the local government provide sufficient information about public services and activities in the municipality? Does the local government consult you enough concerning important interventions? And to what extent do you trust your local government? And additionally, also the regional government, federal government, and the police. So these are some examples of questions from the survey, which can give us, and especially local authorities, a very good view of how people, how citizens think of their municipality and their authorities. Now, as I said, the survey runs in all 300 Flemish municipalities, but it's also interesting to go to the origins of the survey, because it all started as simply the city monitor. And this city monitor was organized only in the 13 so-called central cities in Flanders. They're marked in the map. And these are, well, the larger cities in Flanders with a central function in areas such as employment, care, education, culture, leisure, because they really attract citizens from other municipalities to the city. And the initial goal of the survey of the city monitor was that these 13 central cities want to get an idea of the sustainability and the livability of and in the cities. And the first edition was in 2004 as a telephone survey to start with. But because we wanted to get an idea of evolution, how is sustainability, livability evolving in the cities, there were consecutive editions in 2006, 2008, when we turned to a postal survey, then 2011, 2014. And it turned out that the survey had a real clear added value, because we really got a view on livability, on sustainability of cities. And therefore, in 2017, the city monitor was expanded to all 300 Flemish municipalities. So in 2017, next to the city monitor, we also had the new municipality monitor, which was organized in 287 other municipalities next to the city monitor for the 13 central cities. Then for the 2020 edition, we did an exercise for maximum coordination between the two surveys, and the municipality city monitor was developed as an integrated product. So the survey in 2020 was organized for the 7th time in these central cities, and for the 2nd time in all other municipalities in Flanders. And at this moment, we're already heading for the new edition of 2023. Now, how did the survey work exactly? Well, first of all, we took a sample, and per municipality, a representative sample of inhabitants was selected, inhabitants between 17 and 85 years old. And the sample drawing was done by the National Register based by a sample plan. In total, almost 380,000 inhabitants were invited to participate. And in first step, these 380,000 citizens got an invitation letter with a link to an online survey, because well, a starting point was digital first, online first. Then 1 week later, these people got a reminder, again with an invitation letter and a link to the online survey. And 3 weeks later, the people or the citizens who didn't yet filled out the survey again got a reminder, but next to the invitation letter and a link to the online survey, they also received a written questionnaire in order to also attract the citizens who are not that digitally native. And then in the end, 2 months later, a selected set of 7,500 participants received a thank you card and a gift voucher. And the gift voucher was, of course, there in order to motivate, to stimulate people to fill out the survey. Then in the table, there are some figures on the response rate. So we had 380,000 people who were invited to participate. And in the end, over 150,000 citizens participated, filled out the survey, which is almost 30% of the people who were invited. After quality control, after cleaning, we ended up with 140,000 valid responses, valid questionnaires, which is almost 37% of all invited citizens. 32% fill out the survey written, 68% online. Now, let's go a little bit further into the results, just very quickly. If we look at two questions who were posed in the survey: does the local government communicate well? Do you trust your local government? How do we present these results? Well, these are two indicators. First of all, trust in local government. Secondly, satisfaction with communication by the local authorities. If you, for instance, look at the first graph, which presents the results for trust in local government, the left bar concerns the results for the city of Antwerp, the right bar for the whole of Flanders, of the region of Flanders. And we see that in the bottom says that, for instance, for the region of Flanders, 34% is or has a lot of trust in the local authorities, while only 21% has little trust in local authorities. Then the right graph, satisfaction with communication with the local authorities. If we look at the right bar, which presents results for the region of Flanders, 56%, for instance, says that they have or that they are satisfied with communication by the local authorities, while only 17% says that are dissatisfied with communication by local authorities. So this just gives you an idea of the way in which we present our results from the survey. And well, the added value is also in the fact that, especially in these 13 central cities, of which Antwerp is one, the survey was already conducted for the 7th time in 2020. So we also have evolutions. Here, for instance, the yellow line presents the evolution for Antwerp. The red line is the evolution for the whole of Flanders, for the region of Flanders. So that's clearly one of the added values of the survey, namely that we can get an eye on evolutions. How does, for instance, in this graph, trust in local government evolve through time? All our data are presented on our website, and we really try to make products tailored to the user, from interested citizen to the data experts. We have online index cards with key figures, easy to read for instance, local office holders. We have PDF reports with selection of indicators. There's an interactive tool with graphs and maps, graphs which I just showed. And who really wants to dive deeper into the data, we also have Excel files with all data presented neatly. So the municipality city monitor has a lot of data, register data, survey data, which can be consulted by everyone. But now, what is the added value of our monitor? Well, this here is an extract from a municipal magazine with an introduction from the mayor. And the title says, Well, in general, our municipality scores well according to the municipality city monitor. And the mayor continues. He says that the municipality scores well, and for some domains even better than average. For example, when it comes to living together, spatial setting, care and health culture. But he continues, improvements are necessary. For instance, with regard to safe cycling and daycare for children. And he finishes by saying that these concerns are included in different policy measures by the municipality that have already been implemented or that are in progress. So this extract makes clear that local authorities really learn, or at least try to learn, from the results and from the data in the municipality and city monitor. So if we then go into the added value, well, first of all, the data really give a clear view on the current state of the municipality. It gives a view on living and working in a municipality from a citizen's perspective, like I said, which can be linked to register data. So it really gives you a state of the art of the municipality. Secondly, municipalities in Flanders have a lot of obligations. To start with, they have to make up an environmental analysis. This is an analysis of, first of all, the performance of the local government and also of its ever-changing environment. So local authorities have to draw up or have to make up a report, an analysis of the environment in which they are working, both externally and internally. Then secondly, they have to make up a policy plan at the beginning of each legislative term, which presents their strategic policy choices. And this policy plan should be based on the environmental analysis. So it's quite some work for local authorities, for the local government to make this analysis, but the Flemish government really tries to support municipalities in fulfilling these obligations. For instance, or amongst others, by providing data, by providing knowledge in the form of the municipality and city monitor. So we really try to help municipalities to make well-founded and data-driven policy decisions. And finally, actually, everyone can get started with the data, not only local authorities, local office holders, but also, for instance, journalists, interested citizens, academic institutions, and so on. And this can also be useful just to analyze and to strengthen the strategic policy of municipalities and cities. And this brings us to what has, well, in some way become our slogan, that together, being our agency, together with local authorities and all relevant stakeholders, together we are going for stronger and more data-driven policy making. And that's our story. If you want to go know more, we have a website, which is, however, in Dutch. But if you would have any further questions, here's our email address. You can always contact us for further information, or if you would have any more questions. That's it for me.
That's it, and that's a lot, Jeff. Thank you so much, because it's really well. To be honest, I'm a bit familiar, of course, with the monitor, with the instrument, also with how it is used, and it's extremely rich. And as you also said in your presentation, not built overnight. It already has a history. There is this sustainability aspect. I mean, it's being used. I think the level of credibility, as with all these methodologies and instruments, it only grows over time. It also improves, and it grows over time. And I think it's fair indeed to say that it's really being used as a policy input, and so this slogan that you have put at the last slide of I mean, together building stronger evidence-based. I think this is really what the instrument does. And so the instrument is only an instrument, but the way how it is used really makes it of added value. Questions, dear colleagues, for the colleagues that are online. Are there some questions that you have on the spot? I see Goran as the first one. Yes, Goran, please go in.
Thank you, Teknik, and thank you, Jeff, for interesting presentation. I'm even there to compare the presentation of Albanian minister and yours, Jeff, simply because it triggered my thinking in a way that Barometric from Albania, as a state-led initiative, also enabling data-driven policy, but also going towards improvement of the services, is similar to what you're doing at the city and municipal level. And many times we are lacking things like vertical coordination and zooming in and zooming out. So I would rather be interested in your understanding of your concept and its potential to replicate and maybe even